Even Maldives has the gall to kick India in the chin and get away with it. It can kick out the airport operator from India. It can summon and publicly dress down the Indian ambassador without fear of any consequences. In Sri Lanka, India is pretty happy now, apparently, playing second fiddle to China, despite our natural geostrategic advantage and despite our economic and investment clout in that country. We can't bring that country online. And I think if you look at the bigger picture again, a dynamic and a forward-looking foreign policy can make India a bridge builder, a bridge between the East and the West, a bridge between Asia and Europe, a bridge between the developed and the developing worlds. But you can't be a bridge builder through woolly-headed and reactive policies. India has to come out of its traditions of escapism. An India that believes that being soft and being confused, you can't be a great power with poor governance at home, with institutional weaknesses at home, with professional inputs being discarded, and policy-making being increasingly personalized in the hands of 1, 2, or 3 individuals. No country has ever become a great power with such liabilities and limitations.
Well, Dr. Brahma Chelani, I have heard many critiques of this government's policies. You restrict it not just to governments, you restrict it to the center across different political groups. You call it soft, confused, escapist, and if I understand you correctly, an unreal foreign policy. This is the strongest critique I have heard in a long time, but you will have to tell the House on the other side, you'll have to back up your arguments with facts, and I hope you'll do that when we go into the open debate round. Our last speaker, he likes having the last word. G. Parthasarathy is our last speaker against the motion.
Thank you, Arunabh. This is much better than a Times Now debate, because with this young crowd, I'm happy that our future is in safe hands.
That's
because when I was their age, I certainly could not debate at the level which these youngsters are debating. Though at home, my daughters and my grandkids give me a taste of the medicine which one gets here. We're coming basically to, is India's foreign policy in tune with aspirations?
That's right.
I think one should be very clear. One has aspirations and expectations, and on the other side, you have what is achievable. Because ultimately, your influence in the world is determined by what the Chinese call as comprehensive national power, which is political cohesion at home, political unity about what you want, and to deliver that, you need the economic strength. I recall when I visited China with Rajiv Gandhi in 1988, there were nobody on the world stage. But look at the economic progress where it has taken them. It's produced its own problems. But today, they are in a position to supply fighter aircraft. They are in a position to supply nuclear weapons to Pakistan. They are able to invest huge amounts abroad. Economic power is crucial. More important, translating that economic power. I know of projects in Myanmar, which we agreed to in 1993, lying still unimplemented through NDA, UPA, everybody. Do we have the tools to implement our economic, translate economic power into reality? Lastly, military power. And this is crucial because not only have you to defend yourself, but you have to be able to project it beyond your shores. Do you have a defense industry? I mean, let's face it, your public sector ordnance factories can at best turn screwdrivers. They can't produce modern technology. The only success which we've had in defense research is in our missile program, combined, of course, with the nuclear weapons, which is with DAE. But certainly not in producing fighter aircraft or even automatic weapons for use by our army. So this is crucial because when Afghanistan asks us for weapons, There are two aspects to it. One, I am in severe disagreement with this government's policy in not responding positively to that request. It is in our national security interest to do so. But more important, can we produce quality stuff which other countries produce? We can't. We don't have the abilities. Given this framework, I think, transcending governments, we must remember, there is a national consensus on foreign policy. Whenever the country has felt threatened, whether it was 1962, 65, 71, or Kargil, the politicians have stood together. So politician bashing should not be carried beyond a point. Legitimate differences will occur. Now, what have we achieved? What are the centers of power which we are reacting with? One, leave aside China, which I'll deal with separately, is US, Russia, European Union, Japan. And more importantly, in our neighborhood, ASEAN. I think successive governments after liberalization have done a good job in the economic engagement with all these countries. Arunabh, it's not 20 years ago, the only car we could produce, which a Malaysian told me, was a car which, every part made a noise except the horn. You know what I'm talking about. We've changed, we moved ahead, we've liberalized our economy, things are moving. And we are much better off. We are a member of G20. That is not an accomplishment of UPA or NDA, it's an accomplishment of the people of India because of the economic growth we've had. So I think that is very important. We are regarded as an economic power by other developing countries, BRICS, ASEAN, IBSA, all these are there. Now, coming to the main problem children, China and Pakistan, I would agree with Brahma, though we're sitting on opposite sides of the table. I am afraid after Indira Gandhi, I have not known a prime minister in India who can put these two countries in their place. In the case of China, for example, I'll give you a classic thing. Why are we unable to supply cruise missiles to Vietnam when China supplies nuclear weapons to us? Why are we not able to China supplies nuclear weapons to Pakistan? Why are we not able to build a stronger and more robust diplomatic military relationship with Japan and the trilateral of Japan, USA, India? Because our defense ministry runs scared of offending the Chinese. How is it that the Chinese walk into Depsang, which since 1693 has been on the Ladakh side of the Ladakh-Tibet border, and we call it an intrusion and we say it's an acne on our chin? So I think, let us be very clear, articulation is important. And with regard to China, we have not used the diplomatic tools which we should be using, and this transcends governments. With regard to Pakistan, yes, obviously we do not want to escalate things into nuclear conflict. But what is the signals you are sending, Arunabh, as you said? The signal you are sending is you kick us where you want and we'll say everything is hunky-dory, which it is not. Now, you have to have a nuanced policy, and I don't want to go into the details here, of raising the diplomatic and domestic costs to Pakistan for their hostility towards India. That is the only way of dealing with this issue. Yes, by all means, talk to them, engage with them. We have no quarrel with the people of Pakistan. I want our visa procedures to be even more simplified so that people can come here. But I'm sorry, but since Indira Gandhi, I have not met a Prime Minister of India who can deliver that message firmly to Pakistan. Finally, I want to say something with regard to what Tejmi said on Africa. Don't worry. I've been in Africa when the Chinese rushed in and were booted out. The Africans are very sensitive people. The Chinese are exploiting their military resources. We have done the right thing ever since Dr. Kalam, in his larger Africa sweep, said focus on giving them technology, investment, building their capacities. They will get driven out, things will fall in our lap. Lastly, we should not allow our differences with China and Pakistan to come in the way of our larger role. And that will come when we develop our own defense and economic potential. In the Middle East, where we get our oil from, let me say it, we've paid our cards, successive governments, brilliantly. I go back to the decision to establish diplomatic
Can I-
relations with Israel. We are the only country in the world, including the West, which has equally good relations with Israel, Iran, and Saudi Arabia.
Well, at that point has been made. Mr. Parsati, we'll leave this. You've covered a lot of track, but we'll go into the open debate round. Now, I have found this debate so far very interesting because I find some interesting ideas come up. Mr. Parsati talks about consensus on foreign policy. So I don't know. I haven't seen consensus leave aside on Pakistan and China. Even on Maldives, there is no consensus between political parties.
Recently and unfortunately, we lost some Indians of Gujarati origin in a terrorist outrage in Nairobi. Do you think India should have sent its forces into Kenya?
Temi, would you like to respond to
Yes, sir, that's exactly what I'm...
question, if I can interrupt.
That's exactly what I was talking about.
Don't get offended by the reference to Gujarat. I mean, that was inadvertent.
I'm least about Gujarat.